I quite literally went downtown Calgary. I went venue to venue, and I had this little clock radio, and I burnt a CD to date myself. I burnt a CD with instrumentals on it, and I went door to door, and I'm talking like restaurant, gym, like whatever type of space it was. And I asked them for the opportunity to sing for them. And I said, if you like it, I'll do an event, or I'll do whatever. I'll do the first one for free to prove to you guys. And then from there, if you like it, hire me, and I'll come back.
Okay.
And so that's kind of where it started. Around that 17, 18 years old is where I knew that I really, really want to do this.
Honesty, ain't that what you promised me? And why waste my tears on you? I know that I'm worth it, and I know I deserve it. I just want an L-O-V-E, someone who knows how to.
I want to welcome you, Justine, to Pop-Up Conversations. We're here in Toronto. We talk to artists across the country about their musical journey and, current projects and all that good stuff. And we're very excited to have you. So welcome on the show.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here. I've watched some of the interviews from before, and they seem great. So I'm pumped.
No, I think you're just reminiscent of something nostalgic and something old but new and fresh, and I think that's what has pulled me into your world. Just a combination of R&B and soul, and because I grew up listening to some of the people you've mentioned as your listen to growing up, Aaliyah, Amy Winehouse, and those are those are icons. So I wanna go back to the start, if you would. I know that you grew up around music and all of that stuff, but there's a difference between growing up around music and actually being affected by it to the extent that you want to make that a career. So I guess my first question would be, what was that thing for music? What did music do for you that made you follow so closely, and all this many years later, here we are.
I love that question. That's such a good question. Like, what did it do for me? I felt like, so I was around 7 when I wrote my first song, and at the time that I did that, I remember the feeling of like, it felt like an escape. It felt like a natural place to put my feelings and my emotions and my imagination. And so I think it was just that. It was just the way that it made me feel. And I went through waves when I was younger of being like, maybe I'll do this or do that. But no matter what, I always pictured doing music to some capacity. So for example, at one point I wanted to be a paleontologist and study dinosaurs, but in my head I was like, no, I've got a plan. I was like, I can, fly in and like dig up a dinosaur and then fly out and do a concert, in LA or something. I had a plan, man. But I think it was just remembering how it made me feel. And it was right around 7, writing my first song, discovering Aaliyah's music. My mom used to play a lot of Erykah Badu growing up, and I remember hearing her and was just like, oh, oof, yeah, exactly. So it was just, I had never had anything else make me feel the way that music made me feel. And as I've gotten older, it's been, what fuels me is to make music, but to hopefully make other people feel the same way that I felt when I was discovering Aaliyah and discovering Erykah and some of my favorite artists, So yeah, I've always been in love with it since I was young. I'd say 7.
Awesome. So the genres that you've mentioned with Aaliyah and Miss Badu is it's just sultry and heavy and soul and R&B, and even for their generation, they actually broke boundaries and stuff. What is it about that genre in itself? And I'm sure you were exposed to a ton of different music, but again, the genre itself, was there a way the message was being conveyed in that genre that kind of appealed to you?
Yeah. I think it was the authenticity. I think it's right, because you hear a lot of really good music. You hear some great music that's like good for when you want to party or good for when you want to whatever. But there's something about R&B music that takes you to that place where, even though I was young when I was discovering it and I knew nothing about heartbreak, I was like, sing on it, sister. Like, I felt like I knew that moment, But there's just a truth behind R&B music and a truth behind artists like Aaliyah and like Erykah Badu that it just made me feel a little bit more. Even Amy Winehouse, she's one of my favorites. And I know that she kind of transcends R&B and jazz and soul, but there was a realness to her that I found it so compelling and just so moving.
Yeah, yeah. And moving on from that, I think one of the things that I've been trying to do recently, just talking to people, is trying to find that place where dreams and desires are turned into action. So I like to say, okay, now we've established, the desire for music, and of course, your talent is undeniable at this point, but at what point did you start to take those concrete steps to say, I'm going to be a recording artist? I'm going to turn all of this piece of music I'm writing into something that can actually be recorded and listened to and start. So what were the steps you took transitioning from desire to reality?
I remember it clearly. It was probably around 17 or 18.
Okay.
The first big step that I took or at least what felt big at the time, was I auditioned for Canadian Idol. And that was where I was like, this is it. Like, this is where it happens for me. And it definitely did not happen for me there. I made it through, I think to the 4th round. And it was an amazing experience. But I remember after I did that, I was so discouraged. And I was so young at the time. I had so many more things, I think, to develop musically, but I remember feeling like, man, like if I really had that talent and if I really was going to make it, like, wouldn't they have seen it? Which was totally the wrong way to think. And so I think I probably moped for maybe 8 months after that. And then I had that thought of, they're right. I do have more to learn and to experience. And at that time, I hadn't even played a live show before. And so I quite literally went downtown Calgary. I went venue to venue, and I had this little clock radio, and I burnt a CD, to date myself. I burnt a CD with instrumentals on it. And I went door to door, and I'm talking like restaurant, gym, like whatever type of space it was. And I asked them for the opportunity to sing for them. And I said, if you like it, I'll do an event, or I'll do whatever. I'll do the first one for free to prove to you guys. And then from there, if you like it, hire me and I'll come back. Okay. And so that's kind of where it started. Around that 17, 18 years old is where I knew that I really, really want to do this. And then I started recording right around the same time, but I kind of only dove into my original body of work to the point that I'm really proud of it sort of the past 2 years. Yeah. So it's been a work in progress, but yeah, I mean, the second I knew I wanted to do it, I just went door to door and was like, someone's got to take me. Someone's got to help.
Yeah. Awesome. That's brilliant. Just being able to, like I said, being able to go from that state of dreaming to actually executing. So that's fantastic. So thank you so much for that story. I know you have a bunch of songs before you put out this first EP. Now you talked a little bit about honing your skills and all of that, and probably that's why Idol didn't quite work out. But what have you learned? What did you learn in that period of time in terms of refining and honing your skills to get you to the place where you are now?
Yeah, I love that question. The biggest thing I think that I learned was to not plan so much what I wanted to be as an artist, and just step into it and organically see what type of music do I want to make. If I'm not trying to put myself in a box, if I'm not trying to say, oh, I should sound like these artists because these are who I look up to, really tap into who am I authentically. And I think one of the great lessons that I received was from Amy Winehouse, through listening to her music. Okay. And she was one of the first artists that I listened to and was like, sometimes her vocal is imperfect. Sometimes, it's raw. She's sliding between keys. She's doing all kinds of crazy things that I'd never heard before. But it's so her. And I always think if she was focused on trying to sound like Whitney Houston, or if, Rihanna was trying to sound like Mariah Carey, you wouldn't have those voices and have the greatness that they are. So I think that was the first lesson, was don't try to be anybody else. Just be me, And secondly, what I struggled with a little bit is I grew up on a lot of different kinds of music. So obviously I told you about some of the R&B inspirations, but I mean, I went through a Nirvana stage. I listened to the Beatles for a little minute. You know, I listened to Garth Brooks, some country. Like, I
Okay.
listened to so many different things that when I started making music, I think I was so excited to just create that there were so many influences
Yeah.
in my stuff that when I stepped back, I was like, okay, I like it, but it didn't quite have, like, there had to be an in-between of not trying to be something too hard, but then also kind of knowing what lane I wanted to be in. So I think that I realized there's no shortcut to figuring it out. You just have to get in there and do it and trial and error. But ultimately getting to the spot now where I feel really proud of my music is I feel like my number one fan first. So when I make something and I authentically like it, I'm like, that's the vibe. Whereas before it was just a little too like, it should be this, I should sound like that. I'm like, no, that's not it. That's not it.
Wow.
But I mean, I will say I'm proud of a lot of the early writing that I did, because I think I was writing from a really honest place, and it was just good for me to do. But, you know, I can't lie. I listen back to some of my old stuff and it's a little cringy. I won't lie to you. I won't lie.
No, I think that happens to all of us, right? Like, there are times I look back at, you know, earlier tapings of me interviewing people, and it's kind of cringy, but hey.
Yeah, we learn from it though, right?
We learn. We learn. So that's a brilliant. That's okay. So I'm going to try and draw a couple of dots here from what you just said. Probably this is a good segue to come into your EP right now about being your fan first and being authentic to yourself and all of that. So I want to talk about your EP, While You Were Sleeping. For the people who have just joined in or who've been here, we're talking to Justine Tyrell, and we're talking about her newly released EP, While You Were Sleeping, and that was released on April 23rd, correct?
That's right. That's it.
Awesome. And the first single off that record was Worthy, correct?
You got it.
Yeah, so I want to try and draw a dot from where you're coming from to what Worthy represents. You've said it's about empowerment, and it's about standing up, and about knowing who you truly are and walking away from certain situations, essentially self-realization. What has that meant to you? In terms of, you know, unboxing yourself and blooming and blossoming and becoming the person that you are?
That's also, I feel like I keep saying that's such a great question, because all your questions are great. I think that when I wrote the course of that song specifically, it felt like a bit of an open letter to myself, because I'm sure, like, we all struggle to see ourselves for what we really are. And I definitely do. And I have days where perfectionism just like eats me, you know, and it makes it hard to, some days it makes it hard to release music and everything, because I obsess on wanting everything to be so perfect. And when I was writing the course of this song, I was like, you know, writing a line like, I know that I'm worth it, I know I deserve it. I was like, damn, that feels good just for me to hear to my own self. Yeah. And so it meant, if I'm going to say something to people, I have to believe it first, right? And so I think what it meant to me was the opportunity to step into a space where first I'm reminding myself that I'm worth it, and that I deserve good love, and that I deserve to feel whole. And as much as that song takes place in the context of a relationship perspective, there was this duality that I was feeling, because when I wrote that song, it was right around when everything had happened with George Floyd. And it was in the height of a lot of the Black Lives Matter conversations that were starting to happen more. And I felt like I wanted something where people can hear it, and particularly people of color can feel good in their skin and feel worthy as a Black man, a Black woman, a Black folk, whatever. That was part of the messaging in that too, which was why we wanted to build the visual out to create something where there's people of all different shades, all different sizes, because that was some of the messaging behind the song too. So I feel like I went on a tangent. I got a little bit off track, but
I'm here. It's all good.
Yes, but what that song means to me is just reminding myself that I'm worthy, and reminding anybody who's listening that they are too, no matter what, that they are too.
You know, that's beautiful, and I think the visuals as well kind of. So there's a certain level of duality that I think you play with on the EP itself. So I'm going to come back to the idea of being worthy and linking that to social issues in terms of race issues and whatnot. But again, the title of the album itself, I hear you describe it as for those people who didn't quite believe in your abilities, and also it was while people slept that you put in the work to create you create that project. So duality there. But the question would be, how important is it for you to be to use music in a certain sense to kind of speak to social issues like you've done on this one track? I know it's not probably what you're about, but how was it important for you to try and articulate that in music, knowing that you have a platform?
Yeah, it's a tough one because that is really my only song on the EP that I felt did that. And even when I did that, it was very subtle.
Yeah.
But I think that more the way that I try to do that is just like reminding people to, I guess, just feel good in their skin and feel good, you know, no matter who they are. And so it's less about, I don't have a lot of literal messaging necessarily in my music, but through everything in this past year, I definitely did sit and think like, what is my role in contributing to these conversations and in contributing to the social injustice that was happening and the racial injustice that was happening. And I think that I felt better when I would speak to it in interviews and use that space to kind of create conversation for it and then fuse it into my music a little bit. But I think part of what we have to do as artists is like, we're also here to just try to help people feel good and help build them up. So although I didn't have a lot of literal messaging in it, it was important that I can offer something into the world that's going to uplift people and make them feel good. So,
awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome, brilliant, very well articulated. And just in terms of being worthy, I just want to harken back on what you said. Why do you think that sometimes people struggle with that, realizing of, you know, how beautiful or how special they are? Why do you think we need constant reminders of that?
I think because we have constant noise telling us what we're not. And so sometimes we have to actively tune in and be like, no, wait, I am beautiful. I am amazing. I am capable and worthy. And I think, at least speaking from my personal feelings of where those types of feelings come from, is comparisons. You know, I do that a lot. I'll sit on social media and I see somebody who's, maybe they're further in their career. Maybe I deem them so beautiful or a different body type than what I have or whatever it is. And it's hard to filter that out. And I think a lot of people, I'm sure, probably feel that way. So I think that message is important because every day we're getting this and we're getting such an unrealistic gauge of what we're supposed to be. Yeah. Right. And so it's hard sometimes, I think, to separate that and be like, this isn't real. This isn't attainable. This isn't realistic. And no one can be me as good as I can be me. No one can be you as good as you can be you. So yeah, I try to bring myself back to that place because I'm constantly comparing, and you know, it's tough. It's tough. Yes, it is. Mm-hmm.
I hear you. Thanks for just diving into that a bit. So now the album itself, you have Radar on there, which is personally my favorite song, because it's stripped down and your vocals are insane on it. But was this a concept album itself, or you just how did the album come together?
I'm gonna be honest with you. I wish it was this very curated concept thing going into it.
No. Okay.
No. I mean, we did do a lot of pre-production and a lot of discussion of certain elements and themes that we wanted to carry through it, but we kind of just we cut the track, got it done, released it, moved on to the next one, got it done, released it. So a lot of times, and I think what I thought I was going to do as an artist was record everything first and then step back and be like, okay, here's the songs that I have, pick and choose. Okay. No, we kind of wrote recorded and made it as we went. I think that there were certain common themes that I definitely knew I wanted to write about, so that sort of tied it together. But yeah, it wasn't overly a concept. I will be honest. I more stepped back afterwards and was like, oh, I see the commonality. I see the threads. I see where I was writing from. But it was like accidental goodness on that project.
Okay, so again, like I said, I've listened to the EP, and it's really, really quality stuff. Congratulations, Justine. I couldn't speak more highly of it. The name of the album itself, I think it speaks to work ethic. You talk about putting that when the world is asleep, but it also I want to find out what your work ethic is like, and also for the people who kind of slept on you. What did that do to drive this process, or to drive your process of creating and living in the authentic you, which is to make music and leave that dream?
Well, I find anytime I feel like I'm being slept on in any sense, I'm like, it's a motivator, right? Like, I feel like a lot of us probably feel that way. If you think that someone like doesn't know that you're working hard behind the scenes, you're like, just wait. So I definitely find that energy motivating. I think that you mentioned duality before. There's even like a third duality, I don't know what that would be called. So one, like you mentioned, when people kind of just write you off in general, when people, you tell people like, I'm going to achieve this, I'm going to accomplish my dreams, and they're kind of like, okay. Then there's the side of it where it's from a relationship perspective, when someone had something really good right in front of them, and when you say like, oh man, they were sleeping on it, they didn't even see it. True. That side of it. And then there's the literal side where I'm such a nocturnal nighttime person, and I think you had mentioned before work ethic and kind of how I work.
Yes.
I work a lot at night, and so for me, like, my creative hours are, I'd say, like 9 or 10 to 3 or 4 in the morning. And
have you always been that way?
Yes, always been that way. From when I was a kid, my parents are like that too. I think we're just a nocturnal family, I guess. But that would kind of be what I'd create, and when I enjoyed it the most is when there's like no cars in the streets. I look out the window, all of the lights are on. Like, I know my phone's not going to ring. Things just feel still. So there's that literal perspective where we quite literally wrote, recorded, and created a lot of this record while it felt like the world was sleeping. Was asleep. Yeah.
Awesome. And I think the cover art of the EP itself kind of lays credence to that. So okay, now I understand it fully. So
what was the word you used? You found the word and I couldn't. I said duality, but for
I don't even know if that's a word. I just made I called it triality, but I just made it up. Okay, so now we've come to the other side of desire and dream and execution. There's been a lot of response to what you've done over the years, and of course, you're, for lack of a better term, you're accomplished. And I read all of this stuff that has been bestowed on you: Singer of the Year, Solo Artist of the Year, Media Personality of the Year, and stuff like that. In terms of just validation for your talent and the work that you've put in so far, how do all of that accolades, what do they do for you, and in trying to unfold your career, what do they do for you?
I mean, as I said, I'm that perfectionist. I'm on this never-ending chase of, is it good enough? Which is awful. But I feel like what some of those things have done is sort of just been a little bit of a reminder and a nudge that, you're doing the right thing. You're on the right path. You're going the right direction. And I feel like being an artist, there's no guide on how to do it and if we're doing the right things. And so I try not to place a ton of value on accolade type stuff, but it is nice to get it sometimes and to just have that reassurance that what you're doing is connecting with people and touching people and it's working and it's like a quantifiable way to sort of measure it a little bit. But yeah, I mean, it feels good. I'd be lying if I didn't say it feels nice. It feels nice.
Awesome. I like that. I think there's a certain level of measurement that we have as human beings to kind of like keep track of where we are, and I think those things, they come in handy there to let us know we're making progress. So, congratulations again. It's an honor to be talking to you. The video for Worthy, just a little thing I picked up, just a tiny detail about your earrings in that video. And I was going to ask, just kind of ask how much input do you have into the creation of your videos and stuff, because they are just masterpieces and they seem very well thought through, right? They seem like a storyboard was drawn up and stuff like that. So tell me about those earrings, one.
I feel so seen right now. I was like, this man knows me. Yeah, even, okay, now I'm excited. Now I'm all flustered because I'm so excited to ask this. So, in terms of how involved I am, I'm so involved. So that's, especially when it comes to visuals, that stuff is just, that's my heart. And so I would do exactly what you said with storyboarding. I would go through Pinterest, I would go through Instagram, I'd scour the internet to try to find things that inspired me and captured a little bit of what I pictured in my mind. And for the crew that I worked with, both for Worthy, they're Glean Productions out of Calgary, an amazing group. Serendipities, who I've done a lot of my other videos with, they're incredible, but they're also so collaborative. So everyone was really great. I'd send them the ideas and be like, this is kind of what I'm thinking. And there'd be some back and forth. They'd suggest things, I'd suggest things, but ultimately I got to pick all of those details. Like those earrings, the little LOVE earrings, you best believe we went to like Value Village and we went to the mall and Dollarama and like just everywhere to find those little details. I also actually, on that note, one of my best friends who you had interviewed as well, who's an amazing artist, Therese, her song dropped today. Yes, it did. Therese was such an incredible help when it came to putting together those creative details and the looks and everything.
Wow.
Oof. Wow. Yeah, so her and I just went and like picked through everything we could and built the looks from the ground up. Wow,
that's so again, I think it just speaks to work ethic and those attention to details. They really make me excited. It tells me the kind of caliber an artist is, and I guess that's why we're talking now, because you do put in the work and it shows. Like you can tell that, work has been put in here. I'm so excited, man. I'm so.
I as soon as you recognize those earrings, I was like, that's it.
Okay. Congratulations again for the EP. Where are we headed from here? What's next? I know you just put this out. Are we putting out more videos for songs on the EP? We're gonna get to the part where I talk about COVID and what that has done. But what's next for you?
Yeah. So we are trying and have been trying to figure out when and how we can do a visual for warning signs. I want to go big with that song. I want to do something that's very captures summer, like the summer that we're all waiting to have, basically, is what I want that video to embody. But obviously, as you mentioned, COVID, that's been a bit of a deterrent in that.
Yeah.
So definitely there'll be some more visual work from the EP. And then, quite honestly, I'm back in the studio again next week. So we're going to continue to create more music. We're looking at maybe doing a bit of a mixtape. So some songs that didn't make the EP, some songs that we've had for a while that are still great. They just hadn't had, I guess, a home. So yeah, short answer, more visuals, more music, and hopefully in a post-COVID world, some touring as well. We were out in New York just before COVID hit, performing out there. So I'd like to get back there, get to LA, get to Toronto. So all the things.
I wanna ask about your well-being now. Over the last year or so, we've seen the arts and artists take a massive hit with COVID and the pandemic and the shutting down of the world. How have you kept up and how have you managed? How are you?
I appreciate that question a lot. So on the creative side, I feel lucky because the first thing I did was I applied for every grant I can think of. And so I felt from a creative standpoint, I was supported and able, like through Factor and Alberta Foundation for the Arts, I was able to continue to have an outlet. So losing my shows, I mean, I was performing 4 to 5 nights a week before COVID hit. So that was crazy trying to figure out where to go from there. So creatively, I felt good. I felt supported. Mentally, in terms of just me as a person, it's definitely been the ups and downs, you know, to be honest, which I'm sure obviously all of us are feeling, but I felt like there's these highs when you release music and, you know, it's getting well received and you're feeling good. And then honestly, there are the days where I feel like I've had to look into some help for mental health stuff or see how my friends are doing or having friends checking on me and just being really real with the fact that some days are hard. Yeah. And I think that especially when you're in the arts or when you do something, I think that's public facing, we kind of think mask a lot of that stuff. And so I appreciate being able to say that, like, I'm doing good, but some days were really rough and some days you don't want to get out of bed and you don't feel creative and you don't feel motivated, you know, but all in all, I'm doing good.
Awesome. I'm glad to hear it.
I appreciate you asking that.
You'd be the second person to ask this question. First would be Therese, which was really good. So thank you so much. I think we're doing great. We've had to make massive changes over the last year or so. Typically, I would love to have this stuff in person and talk to you in person and all of that. But of course, that hasn't been the case. But we pivoted and we have been able to make some of this work online, and I'm very excited for that. Family is good. You know, again, I've been one of the fortunate ones to go through what we're going through, and I don't take that for granted.
Good. That's so good. And it makes such a difference when you've got your family. Like, I know for myself, I've got my partner, he's amazing. When at least we can be locked down with people and the people that we love, that's something that I think we can't take for granted. That's huge.
At all. That's true. So I could talk to you all night. Like there's so much in your story that I think we probably would look for a different platform to kind of explore that and have a much extended conversation. But I want to say that the album is remarkable. Rather, the EP is remarkable. I've talked to a lot of people. There's a skill to what you do that is rare, and I love that you're a musician core to the core, and that shows in your music and the way that you put it together and how your visuals come out as well. So I just want to congratulate you for a bunch of things. The reason we do this is, one, to highlight Canadian artists, but again, the flip side to this is that people do have talent and ability, and for them to deploy them to the extent that you have done, be they musicians or writers and stuff like that, it takes courage, it takes vulnerability to share your story and the things you're going through in art form. And for that, I just thank people for doing that. So thank you for doing all of that.
You're going to make my head swell up. I'm going to be like Kanye trying to get out of this. Thank you. I really appreciate that. And I mean, likewise, because part of why people get to know a bit more behind the songs and know what we're doing is because there's awesome people like you that we get to chat and share our stories with you. So I really appreciate that a lot.
Awesome. Just run me through just what's left in the album. I know we talked about Radar, which is my favorite song. There's Worthy on there. There's You'll Miss Me.
There's My Name. There is, what am I missing? Worthy, My Name, You'll Miss Me, Radar, War. That one is my favorite song.
It is? Why is it?
It is, I think the writing was from a really raw and real vulnerable place. Like kind of like when we talked about earlier, when I was discovering some of my favorite music in R&B, I loved the vulnerability behind it and the realness behind it. And I feel like with that song, I tapped into that place a little bit more than some of the other ones. And I've always gravitated to stuff that's a little bit like kind of melancholy, or if there's a touch of hauntingness or something to it. And my producers, Matt Zoatman and Tim Athonius, came up with the musical side of it. And there was something about it when I heard it, it just gave me all the feels. Like it reminded me of like a scene in a movie or something. So yeah, I think it's sonically and it's where I was coming from in the writing are the two reasons that it just makes me, it's my favorite song. I freak out. I love it. It is my favorite. I love it. Yes. I feel like I forgot one. What did I forget? My Name, War, You'll Miss Me, Radar, Worthy. What am I forgetting?
Warning Signs?
Warning Signs. God damn, that's it. Yes. Warning Signs. You know what? Despite the fact that I forgot to mention that one, I love that one. I love the fact that we went kind of more up tempo and sort of this summery type of island fusion to it. With that song as well, there's a little bit of real life inspiration from it. Mm-hmm. I don't know how much time we have. I don't know if we want to get into it today, but there's some real life inspiration from it.
I'm here, man. I'm here.
Hey, okay, well, the Sparks notes of that song is basically the song talks about when you should see a red flag in somebody, and that should probably be enough, you know, when someone seems like trouble, you kind of should have seen it coming type of thing. Yeah. And so I pulled from a couple of my own real experiences, some stories from friends, some of it kind of an imaginative place. Okay. But the second verse taps into some realness of basically, long story short, I was in university and I was dating this guy, and you know, it had maybe been 3 or 4 months or something, like nothing too crazy. But I go home, so I lived in kind of back and forth between Calgary and Lethbridge. I went home one weekend and I'm having a drink with one of my girlfriends and we're chatting, and she's like, yeah, so are you seeing anyone? I'm like, you know, there's this guy and whatever. Well, plot twist. We get talking and we realize we're dating the same guy. Oof. And so he would come from from Lethbridge and go to Calgary, see her, and come back. And so there's a line in the song that said, should have trusted the feeling when you left for the weekend. Because really, that was like, I had that gut feeling, but I didn't think it was going to be like that. So anyways, I could spill all the tea on all the songs, but yeah, there's some interesting, very interesting stories in there. Wow, that's crazy. What are the odds that again, the world is so tiny, right? The world is so small. Wow, I don't even know how to respond to that. Like, that's heavy stuff. So yeah, I want to pick up on something you said earlier about melancholy. I think you've described yourself as a melancholic storyteller. What about that? What about that appeals to you? I don't know. I find something really just beautiful about it. And I actually remember the first time that I started liking sounds like that and melancholy stories like that. And it was when I was listening to Nirvana when I was younger. Okay. And I would listen to Kurt Cobain, and he had just these kind of haunting melodics and these sad lyrics. And I don't know how twisted I am, but I was like, that makes me just feel all the things. And when I would go to create, I think that when I write anything that feels like a bit of a release. And so it's not that I don't like to write happy songs or anything, but I think I almost approach songwriting the same way that I would approach journaling, or, you know, what are those feelings that you kind of want to uncover? What are those crazy stories that at the time hurt, but now you can kind of look back at, poke a little fun at, and put on paper. So I think it was part expression and part just something there's so intriguing about anything that's melancholy or haunting or sad to me. And so to fuse that with R&B was kind of just the perfect place for me. I just love it. Yeah. And I tell you what, that
tells me a little bit more about you as a person. Just I think because not many people would want to admit to the fact that that's a part of their, everybody's always happy and go, but that tells me it's a conversation that we would have for a different time. But I found that interesting when I was researching you, Justine. Again, there's so much to talk about. It's just not enough time. But before I do let you go, just a couple of light questions here. If we've been trying to do this now, I think I started with Therese, but if not music, then what? If you weren't
Easy. Paleontology.
Paleontology?
Yes, I would be studying dinosaurs, and I would hope to find a dinosaur that I could name a damn Tyrannosaurus Rex. Because tell me that wouldn't be perfect. I'm just saying.
Okay, perfect answer, man. Okay, and who are you listening to right now? Who's on your playlist?
Okay, always Daniel Caesar. Daniel Caesar's always on my playlist. Toby, yeah, right? Toby, I think from Toronto or the Toronto.
Yeah, Toby's here, yeah.
And Drake, pop star, come on, yeah. So good.
Always, he's like a consistent guy on everybody's list. So,
yeah.
Well. This has been amazing. I've had so much fun. I'm so excited. I know that we're going to keep talking. At some point when the world opens back up, we would love to have you in person, talk to you in person, and come to a concert of yours and stuff like that. But we're just very honored for your time today. So thank you so much. Congratulations on the EP. We see massive stuff for it, massive success for the people who are going to see this and have joined us. We're talking to Justine Tyrell, and she is just, she's she's really good talent, someone that we should look out for, and you have a space in this Canadian music scene, and we'll continue to cheer for you, okay?
Thank you. That meant so much to me. And this was, I shared the sentiment of I could have sat here all night and talked. So thank you so much. This was really great.
Awesome. We'll keep talking. But for now, have a great rest of your day. And thank you for coming on.
Thank you. You too. And thank you, everybody that tuned in. I appreciate you guys. We appreciate you guys a lot.
Same here. Bye-bye now.
Take care.